recording now. Hi guys, good morning and good day here. We have Dr. Trevor, who has been my colleague for a long time now. We're in touch together, and he's very kind for giving us time to discuss about employability, entrepreneurship, and career and similar things. So Trevor, this channel is not, we are not for subscription or something. It's just for giving to the world free. Just to share experiences, what we people know, and how we can help people who want to seek new careers. Doesn't matter what age, or mostly it's targeted younger age, but it doesn't matter whoever comes. We're looking into how technology, environment changes, and industries and globalization is impacting employability, and how Western world is fighting it back, and how Eastern, particularly emerging markets, can learn lessons from these things. That's a broader agenda, but it's up to you. So let's go this way. So if you can, we can start this way. Trevor, tell us about your journey, particularly the stumbles you have in your career. I mean, starting from uni and then coming back to the job, and then maybe going back to some learning. So some lessons which are reflective journey, and people learn from there. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And forgive me if you're getting a side view. The webcam's over there, but the screen's over here. So it looks a bit strange that I'm talking to the side. This is a very fascinating topic. I love talking to early career professionals around this kind of journey stuff. And a lot of it reflects exactly on that, on my own journey. I started out originally as a youth worker in South Africa. So did a lot of youth work camps, those kinds of things. And I guess at that initial stage, I already, without knowing it, began to fall in love with experiential learning. Young people don't have well, back in the day, they didn't have a really long mind to concentrate on theory or something like that. So you always had to make learning fun. Playing games, gamification. And although I didn't have the theory behind all of this kind of stuff, it fitted me naturally in terms of how I wanted to learn. And so without really knowing it, I began to develop a lot of the skills around experiential learning and also reflection in a lot of the things I did. From a young age as well, while at university, I did a lot of cross-cultural projects all over the place, particularly in places like Morocco. And particularly quite extreme places like the Berbers in the mountains of Morocco. So, no running water, no electricity. And I soon realized that actually these kind of extreme circumstances are great character development opportunities. And so I set up a charity in South Africa, taking young people to these kinds of extreme places in order to, again, create an experience where they would reflect. They had no other option but to reflect, because it was difficult. Living with the Bushmen in the Kalahari in a tent, eating roots from the ground, sitting around campfires at night and learning about oral history. So wonderful experiences, and then helping and facilitating those experiences to mean something to them, because they don't always make the links. And had a lot of kind of experiential activities that they did. While I was doing all of that, I was finishing up my first degrees in psychology and a lot of pedagogics, so the science of education. I then continued in youth work, did a lot of that stuff, and then came to the UK. Worked in the charitable sector, again, wanting to motivate communities to engage and make a difference in their local areas. Again, working with quite extreme situations, single parents. One of the communities I ran down in Brighton, the Methadone Centre was just down the road. The Parole Centre was just down the road, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I've always had a passion to have a widening access brief and to use education as a way to help people help themselves in that sense. I'm getting to the barriers now, if that's where you're trying to push me towards. So ending up in higher education, I think one of the big barriers I find is the balance between education nowadays being a business and you still trying to remain authentic and true to your passions I don't want to sell education. For me, I am an educator, and I believe in the power and impact that education can bring for the person as a whole. Yes, by default, it may mean that they become more employable. Yes, by default, it may mean that they develop entrepreneurial skills and set up their own businesses. But I don't do it for that purpose first and foremost. I do it as my background in youth work to develop them as people, to be active citizens in the societies in which they find themselves. That first and foremost. Now, how they are active citizens is kind of the second step, be that business or et cetera, et cetera. And the barrier for me is this tension between these two things. And they're very difficult to negotiate sometimes. You could end up in an institution which is very business driven, and education is the product that's being sold. And it's very difficult to work sometimes in that kind of context.
Yeah.
So that's been my
Trevor, yeah. Just to take this from there, I understand education is business oriented, but when the people, clients, which we call them customers now, they want output. All the students, when they enter university, they know that after universities, they assume they get a job, they get employed, or maybe they start a business. Maybe most people say they get employed. But the problem is there's a lot of unemployment in different part of the world, the emerging markets. What are your opinion? Why people are unemployed? What can be done for that? Very briefly, I know it's a big topic, but
it is.
because they are, if I look at the case of Brazil, India, they are all qualified. I mean, all have degrees. But when it comes to the job, no. Is it experiential learning? What do you think?
My opinion, and let's just distinguish here between, in the UK at least, we have degree apprenticeships. So these people are already employed. So for them, it's about understanding the next step. Do they want to jump ship when they finish their apprenticeship and move to another employer? In most cases, they want to have a promotion, having had now the degree. So, but I'll come back to them in a minute. In terms of your traditional students, I think it's really helpful to recognize some research was done by a university up in Scotland on graduates' expectations when they joined university initially. And they found that 60% of the students, plus minus, were there simply to get that piece of paper. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, right, the degree. Around 30% were there to develop themselves. So the piece of paper is important, but it's not the only thing. They're there to become professionals, to be active citizens, to work on their skills and their behavior, right, which is an important element of employability. And then, roughly around 10% had no idea why they were at university. I suspect they were probably being nagged by their parents saying, you're not going to sit around playing video games the whole day, go and get a degree. Study what you want to do, but off you go. You're not going to sit around at home. I tested this at one of the universities where I taught. I was teaching a foundation degree, so level 3 students, like a bridging course to get into uni. And I asked them the question, right? So I had about 40 odd students across 2 classes, and I asked the same question on the first day. Introduced myself. They were doing a module called personalized learning. In other words, what is your journey as a learner? Now, if you're not there to learn, well, you're not going to have a journey because you're not there to learn. So I asked the question, what do you want to get out of this degree when you're finished? And the vast majority had no idea. They had no idea. They had no trajectory in terms of what they were building towards. Now, I think that's the initial problem in terms of employability. The other thing around employability is, and there's a particular theory, if you want to look this up, it's called signaling. When a graduate applies for a job, we normally have our job description, we have the essentials, we have the desirables. In most cases, the essential is a degree. So basically, if you don't have a degree, your application goes in the bin. Now, all the degrees are on the table. So now what do? How do they shortlist? How do they pick the 3 or 5 to interview? It's not the degree. Everybody has the degree. That was an essential element on the job description. What they separate out is not, again, how much you got in your degree or what subjects you did in your degree. No, as long as you got the degree in an associated discipline, they start to signal pick up signals around skills and behavior. And you don't develop those things on the day that you fill in the application. If you don't have a problem-solving ability the day you fill in the application, you don't have problem-solving ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if you convince them you did on the paper and you walked into the interview, it will be quickly apparent that you fudged the application form. And now that you're sitting in front of us, you don't have a clue about being agile, being flexible, solving problems, et cetera, and it's these soft skills, it's these kinds of skill development elements that are being developed from day one when you step into the lecture room. Now, if we're just selling education as a knowledge product, we're selling graduates short. It's about the formation of the person. We're back to character development, skills, and behavior. And it's these elements that separate you on the application, and you being able to articulate it on the application effectively.
Yeah, I think very interesting there. So it's more about skills, and I learned that I was interested in oral history. I want to ask a question because I know in India when I was there, so a lot of oral history which is not in the thing. So I will say that part of culture or the carry of the culture to the oral history does affects also, because that leads to our assumptions, how we make assumptions about what I can do, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. Because you might be surprised to know that many parts of the world, including in India, traditionally the jobs were based on the caste. If you heard the word caste, so the tribe or caste-based system. So when community goes to that, so that education has broken that idea, but still this idea is still there. The second comes the question for your mind. You said skills are very, very important, and people sometimes jump into interview because CV is customized and they've done it, but then they can't prove them. So if you are guiding a student or a person who is facing interview and they have only half an hour, from both perspective, from interviewer's perspective and from interviewer's perspective, how would you judge, or what guidelines you want to give to a person, how they prove their skills in that 30-45 minutes of interview?
Before I get into the definites of that, don't forget that any kind of job application process is like dating.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I'm not that desperate that I want a girlfriend. I also want to be a boyfriend, right? It's a match both ways. And
like
all other examples.
Even I have never thought that, because
right?
that is a stress. Okay, dating. Okay,
because
dating.
Exactly. So you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you.
Yeah.
Now, bear with me here. If I don't know what I want, and I go into an interview all prepared to win them over to employ me, but I then end up in an organization where I'm unhappy, I then begin to have mental health issues, etc., etc. I'm back to square one. I'll then resign, and then I've got to go through the whole process again, which is stressful. So my advice number one is this the job you want to apply for? Why is this the job you want to apply for? And I do a lot of that kind of developmental work around students, understanding your passions, your career anchors, all these different kinds of things, which will then help you actually to prepare for the interview much better. Now, let's turn it the other way around. If you are in the interview panel and I was preparing you to interview somebody and we're looking for particular soft skills, how would you do this? Now, agile or flexibility is always a really good one, because you can very easily change the dynamics in the room and then see how the person reacts or responds. So, for example, have you got your PowerPoint yet? Yes. Oh, no, we can't get this to work, but actually I can. But just for those 5 seconds, I'm looking to see how the person is responding and reacting. Do they have a plan B? Are they giving me suggestions? Are they now thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Everything was on that PowerPoint. I'm testing in a real life situation, experiential learning, to see the candidate's response. A little bit manipulative. You've got to be careful that you don't cross boundaries here in terms of ethics. Also, I think the most important question in any interview is the question they ask me, because that gives me an idea. Have they even looked at my website? Are they aware of the values and aims of this company? Are they, are they trying to date me as much as they're trying to get me to date them? Right?
This is something, Trevor. I know this is something I think people don't do it, because when even I have interviewed people, when asked, do you have any questions? No. When I can hear back? That's that's the only thing, Trevor, which you hear back from those people. So I think it's a process. You're rightly saying that there's a process of interviewing and judging. And regarding this agile thing, this thing you mentioned that PPT is not working. This happened with me. And I pulled my bag and took the wire and saying, this is unplugging it, I'm doing it. They were looking at me, I'm doing it. So what happened actually in my interviews, I was quite, because I was, to the truth, in my mind, I was looking for that job particularly. So I think you're right, is a dating concept, feeling self-confidence in the interview and saying we are just dating it. But the problem in the countries I come from, the frustrations of not having job is too high, that looking through saying I want a satisfying job, they become less priority. So these biases of I must have a job becomes more important. So people fake things and throw CVs and do anything to get the jobs. So
when I first arrived in the UK, for the first year, I did all kinds of jobs that had nothing to do with my background, experience, or qualifications. I just needed to bring an income. I'm sitting in front of you today as a senior academic, blah, blah, blah. But when I first came to this country 20 odd years ago, my first job was security at Thorpe Park.
Wow.
Right? So searching the retail people to make sure they're not stealing money or stealing stock, kicking kids out of the park who jumped in over the fence. I mean, what's that got to do with education or any kind of my background work? You just needed to get a job. I was a carpenter's apprentice, helping do showrooms in London for No Fear. I was a golf caddy at rich golf resorts. I was a bouncer in the evenings on the weekends. What else did I do? Goodness, I was a landscaper, so running around with a wheelbarrow.
Wow.
And I did this for an entire year until the job that I am qualified in arrived. Now, I get what you're saying. Sometimes we're too picky. I kind of think about the job market a little bit like a pyramid. When you're new in the job market, even if you've got a qualification, you need to start quite broad at the bottom, on a triangle. You need to get work experience. You need to learn what it is to learn in a professional context, the behavior. And as you become more and more an expert in a particular field, marketing, whatever, and you get more and more experience, you can then begin to narrow down the kinds of options that you're looking for. But again, I'm still in one triangle. And that, again, for me is the key. Which triangle are you going to jump into to work your way to the apex, right? The job, the dream job that you're aiming for. Now, if you don't have a clear aim of what job it is, you might be in the wrong triangle, putting all the effort, experience, etc., in the wrong triangle. And then when you finally realize what you want to do and you're in the wrong triangle, you've got to jump triangles. And in most cases, you'll jump a level down into another triangle. Now, I'm not saying all of that is a waste of time, because I don't think any experience is a waste of time. It's you learn from everything. But it would be helpful to have jumped into the right triangle to start with. Right? And even if it's at that basic level where you just need a job, well, still get a job with a clear indication of where this job's going to take you and be in the right field or discipline. Now, again, this doesn't mean that, one job for life, because we know that that's not the case anymore. But you're building at least a group of skills that can have that agility, but are particularly specific in a particular way.
Very interesting there, Trevor, because, coming from there, this choice of the jobs, the 2 points which come here in emerging market, particularly developing countries, I'm talking the perspective of the people who might be my more target audiences, there is no, I can't use the word, but don't want to use the word, respect for particular jobs. So A, B, C, D kind of jobs are not good for my kind of person. Only E, F, and G is fine for me. So that one thing is hindering many people. It's a good perspective saying that do any job, respect the job you're doing and learn those skills from there and carry from there. The second point, you're saying the triangle point, saying that how you jump the triangle. It's again, I think it's good analogy for people to think about that, how they can have base of the triangle and how they can move from one level to the next level and so on in the journey of level. Trevor, people often stuck, I'm not getting shortlisted, particularly students who come to here, interest students, particularly even in other part of the world, they get, I'm not getting shortlisted. I'm throwing CVs, I'm sending CVs, I'm registering here, I'm not getting. So what is advice for people? Why then they're not getting shortlisted? What is the problem with their CV or whatever? The only thing is going CV. I understand that stage.
Yeah, and again, this is the signaling theory. When you're sending in a written document, all the person has in front of them is the written document. Now, obviously, when you get shortlisted, you get the opportunity to be in front of somebody and you can convince them by being present. Yeah. But on the piece of paper, it is very difficult. Some people are better at written communication than they are at verbal communication. And sometimes they're the ones that get shortlisted, but then they don't get successful in the interview. My biggest advice nowadays to anybody who is looking to apply for jobs is pay for a company to do your CV. A lot of application processes are now automated. And these companies that you pay, and it's worth paying the money, if you tell them what kind of job you're looking for, at what level, etc., they know how to put the correct words without lying and being fraudulent into the CV in order for the automated system to pick those things up.
So you say more of SEOs doing your CV is a search engine optimized or something like that.
Exactly. Also, I would always encourage a student to do a skills audit. So what do I mean by skills audit? Let's just say you want to apply for a particular job. Before you rush in and fill in that application, you need an honest assessment in terms of your chances. Now, we know that research has indicated men would apply for a job even though they only fulfill 40% of the criteria. So they're taking a bit of a risk and go, I'll the risk. When they're looking at applications, they have a much stricter criteria on themselves, and they would look to fulfill 70 to 80% before they even think of filling in that application. Now, this is part of the problem in terms of recruitment, that we often have gender-biased application forms, which therefore means we don't get gender applications for obvious reasons. Yeah. And HR is trying to work on that to try and make it a little bit more neutral and encourage people, even if you think you only fulfill half of this, apply, because you might be the kind of person that we're looking for. Anyway, to do a skills audit, list all the things that is essential and give yourself a rating out of 10. Now,
let's elaborate this first. I'm not holding because my thought will because so can you just mention some of the skill sets which I should be auditing generally?
But this is the thing. Every job is different. Every job will have a different skill set. So when you apply for a job, you'll have a clear job description, and in that job description, you'll have a list of essentials, and then you'll have a list of desirables. Now, before you just write the application, do a skills audit and be honest. You're not trying to convince anybody else, and you're not trying to, figure out whether you're a failure or something like that. Just be honest. Look at that skill set and say, out of a score of 10, 10 being I fulfill this, 1 being I'm nowhere near this, rank every single one of those essential criteria.
Okay.
It will give you, taking a step back, it will give you an indication as to whether you are being a little bit too ambitious here.
Okay.
Now, ambition is great, but it has to be realistic.
Yeah.
And if you want to be shortlisted, you need to be extremely competitive. You need to have like an 8, 9, and 10 for all of the essential criteria, all of them. If you don't have an 8 or an 8, 9, 10 for any of them, you now know what to work on. So if you've got a 6, you can ask yourself the question, how do I get myself from a 6 to an 8 on problem solving?
Yeah.
And you specifically make that a career intention to develop, so that next time round, when that problem-solving word comes up, you can then say, do you know what? I think I am an 8 out of 10 on this. And you can clearly evidence that. Not I believe, in terms of some kind of ambition, but actually being able to illustrate that in terms of evidence. The reason why I think I'm an 8 out of 10 for problem solving is because, and give an example of where you were an 8 out of 10 in terms of problem solving. If you then scoring a high rating on all of the essential, you can then work on the desirable.
Yeah.
Because it's the desirable that will get you shortlisted. Because the essential is the essential. Everybody needs to be having a 10 out of 10.
Very interesting.
I say, get that list sorted. If there's gaps in your skills, then you know what to do. Work on it.
Yeah.
Read a book, do a course, get voluntary experience to develop a particular skill if you can't get it in your job. And then it's the desirables that set you apart, and begin to work on those things as well. In most cases, a lot of people won't have the desirables, and it's that makes them not be shortlisted. And it's the people that have the desirables that will be shortlisted, and it's in the interview that you need to then set yourself apart from somebody else in terms of competition. And you need to really have some really good examples in terms of that. One last thing I just want to mention here as well, Sumesh, is that knowledge is always easy to gain. Mm-hmm. If you lack knowledge about something, they can put you on a course.
Yeah.
But character, if you're a grumpy person, if people don't like to be around you because you get angry very quickly, or you are sarcastic, that kind of thing is very, very difficult to change. And somebody will not employ you if you have that kind of character. Now, that kind of thing doesn't change by reading a book. That takes time. You have to identify, why am I so grumpy? Why am I always so negative? And these kind of behavioral things, you have to replace them with good habits. They're a bad habit that you picked up somewhere. And a habit is very difficult to break. And it's these kind of things where, again, it's worth investing in a coach to develop these kind of character issues. So, if you really are driven to be successful, you're going to have to invest in the beginning. Invest in a good CV produced for you, and then invest in your skill and character development. And quite often that means a coach.
Very good, important point, their character, because, I was talking to some people in India because they were putting on some consulting projects. So I said that how work ethics, or, this honesty when the boss is away, still I'm working, and some kind of, this nature of continuously working, being honest with your job is very, very important. Coming back, because the time is taking, and this Zoom will close because it's a free version. So last thing about apprenticeship, because that's something you passionately do. And if you can tell us 2 minutes, so how the Eastern world can learn from apprenticeship, because in Eastern world, apprenticeship means only working with the machines and that's it. No other areas, service sector, no apprenticeship, so nothing else. So tell us about the apprenticeship, how it works, and how this can be a new way of educating or building character, skills, and knowledge in the people.
So in the UK, any company that has a payroll higher than 3.5 million, they pay an apprenticeship levy to the government. It's a 0.5% of their payroll. That money can then be drawn down by that multinational to pay for an apprentice. It pays for them to get a university degree. They're 80% on the job, and they're 20% they study. It's a great way to form people in your business culture. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to actually see whether this person is going to add value to your company. Now, because this may not be a system within a country in terms of the government, big multinationals can set this up. Big multinationals can set aside money for themselves and then fund these kind of apprenticeship programs across a country such as India. And so the model can be replicated in third world countries or developing and emerging cultures. The other thing that's really good here is that the whole apprenticeship is not just measured on knowledge, i.e. the degree, but it's also measured on skills, and they list skills for a particular sector, such as business management or marketing, and they list the kinds of characteristic elements that they're looking for. The weakness in the UK system is that when you look at, they call it the standard. When you look at the standard, the knowledge has like 23 different categories, right? Skills, 18, character, 4. And to me, I think that's the real problem in the way in which we're delivering it, is that we still don't actually properly understand the importance of character in terms of people. Again, but they're not just cogs in a system. They want to add value. You know, they either make or break a team, and these are important elements to emphasize and contribute.
Very good. Trevor, we're coming to closer, and that's the normal question which I usually ask to my colleagues. So tell us some few mantras for the people who want to get employed or entrepreneurs. So summarize whatever 5-6 points you want to say in next 30 seconds, and we'll close then.
My mantra, I think, for this kind of thing is give yourself options, particularly if you're new in your career, you're in early careers. Don't narrow your options too soon. Have at least 3 or 4 options available in terms of, like Pac-Man, right? When the ghost comes down one avenue, you can change direction and avoid the Pac-Man. Give yourself options. And by giving yourself options, that means broaden your skill and knowledge base. Don't make it too narrow, too soon. Give yourself options. Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Trevor. And thank you for this time. And I hope the viewer will love it. They want to listen more. And, you know, there's a lot of insight which you want to speak, but the time, other things, we have to limit it. Maybe next time we have a longer one time and maybe more discussions. And maybe coming together on projects also together.
And if your listeners want to reach out, Dr. Trevor Gerhardt on LinkedIn, they can drop me a message, they can add me. I'm very active, so I'm posting things around this kind of subjects quite often.
Thank you, Trevor. That's very helpful. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sumesh. Speak to you soon. Bye.